Hey there! If you're like me, you may find creating eyelashes for your characters kinda tedious or maybe even hard. Well, let me show you how easily you can create them using iFeature Set. So here we have a character and all we need is an object that is going to serve as a guide for the eyelashes. So right here on the eyelid, I will place the cursor right here and let's add a simple mesh object, doesn't matter which one. Then go to edit mode, select everything and press M to merge at center. And now we have a single vertex right here. Then let's go ahead and enable our snapping settings. Select face project, disable this include active and enable all of these. Okay, now I can press E to extrude this vertex. We want a line of vertices along the ridge of the eyelid, like that. Okay, now that we have a mesh line, let's go to the tab of the add-on. We saw previously how we can make an eye and an eyebrow, so now let's select eyelashes. Here we can select stylized or realistic. Let's start with the stylized one and click on the button. Here we have a message, select the base mesh for the eyelashes. This is usually the face of the character, so let's go ahead and select that. And there you go, we have eyelashes. As you can see, it is a bit shorter right here, so let's go into edit mode and extend it a bit further. There. These here are the sections with the various settings. The settings are grouped in these boxes. If you want to reset the settings in the entire box, you can click on this button. So this is stylized eyelashes. This right here is the main strand. And these are the splits. As usual, let's enable the gizmos and take a look at the shape settings. Here we can bulge and round the tail end. On this side, we can bulge and round the splits. Here we can control the thickness at both ends. And with these wheels, we can set the tilt of the eyelashes geometry. Now, this geometry, here we can see the wireframe. The geometry of the eyelashes is this two-dimensional shell, so these set the direction in which it is pointing at. If we go into the settings, we can change this to be a 3D shape. And now this is a closed-off mesh. While we are here, let's take a look at the other settings. This here changes the direction. That is, if you're making this for the left or the right eye. Here we have an option to inflate the profile of the geometry. We can have it flat or bulged, like this. These are the tilt controls. This one will give it an offset from the face of the character. Here we can control the resolution of the mesh. And this one will help you smooth any unevenness in the guide. Alright, let's look at the split settings. Here we can change the amount of splits. We can have none or quite a few. This one sets the size of the region that has the splits. The arrows here change the length of the splits. These are quite regular, so over here we can choose to randomize their length. Alright, this gives us a bit more natural shape. The other tab here is for bending the splits. We can choose to randomize the bend as well. The wheels here adjust the direction of the bending. Okay, so these are quite simple and easy to set up. Let's take a look now at the shading. First off, notice the transition here between the splits and the main strand. If this is undesirable for your material, you can choose here to smooth up this transition, like that. Makes it a bit more cohesive. The eyelashes have their own generated UV map. If we pack it, we can see the island for each individual strand. You can use this UV map when you create the material. So I will make a new one and select that material in this view. Let's see the UV with a UV map node. There it is. You can use it to map textures or separate it to get the gradients. Now, to help you out with the materials, I've created a helper node for the shader. You can import it from this menu. We can now search for eyelashes shades, and there it is. Here are all the shades for the stylized eyelashes. We've got a bunch of maps. There's the UV map. We've got a main gradient going the length of the eyelashes. And we have a few more. I'll put a link in the description so you can read about everything here in the add-on documentation. We've got some masks. And these right here will fade in the eyelashes. This is an alpha map, so let's connect this to the alpha of the BSDF. If I increase this setting, we get a fading effect. This I find looks the best if we use a blended random method with this transparency overlap disabled. So we are fading the tail. We can also fade in the tips right here. Okay, now this is if you use a principled BSDF. If you're doing an NPR shader, like a simple color for example, we can use a mix shader and mix that with a transparent shader, like that. The alpha map now goes into the factor and you get the same fading effect. Okay, that's it for the stylized eyelashes. We can now take a look at the realistic ones. This button here will remove the whole setup. And we can use the same guide to create the realistic eyelashes. Select the base mesh again. And boom, eyelashes. We can go into edit mode if we want to adjust the guide a little bit. Also, I'll go into the object settings and give it a darker color in the viewport. That way we can see the eyelashes a bit better. Alright, let's enable the gizmos and take a look at the density settings. Here we can control the number of eyelashes. Like we saw with the eyebrows, this right here is the control widget. It is a group of settings that we can see all throughout the add-on that gives us the ability to control a certain setting in separate regions of the eyelashes. In this case, it's the density. We can set the number of control points. Notice this being reflected in the number of handles right here. These particular ones lower the density of hairs in that region. We can move the control points with the arrow next to them. They control these settings right here. The wheel is for the seed value. It will generate different variations in the distribution of hairs. These settings here control how wide is the spread of the hairs away from the guide. The hairs are still attached to the base mesh, they just spread out. And here again we have a seed for it. With these settings we can adjust the tilt of the hairs. We can also randomize their tilt with this. Here we can rotate the direction of the eyelashes. And again we can randomize their rotation. The length is the same idea. Control the length of the hairs. And here randomize their length. Here we can bend the hairs. And here we can create clumps in the hairs. The clumping happens in regions. See, now we have 3 regions, which doesn't look good, so let's give it some more. Alright, there we are. Okay, these right here are for the shape of the hairs. This is how thick they are. Here we can inflate their shape. And we can round their tips. And of course there is a randomization in the thickness of the hairs. Alright, let's look at the settings. If I zoom in, we can see the hairs are these simple 2D strips. If you want, you can make them into 3-dimensional strands, and they will have this circular profile. Or we can have them simply as curves. This is so if you want to add another modifier, you can create your own custom hair shape. Here we can control the resolution of the mesh, offset them from the face of the character. We also have the guide smoothing option here as well. Okay, finally, let's look at the shading. We're gonna use the same eyelashes material, but this time we're gonna use the realistic outputs from the eyelashes shades node. Each hair strand has a UV map. Let me show you that right here. The reason it looks like this is because we have a lot of hairs, and right here they're all on top of each other. If I pack the UV map, we can see the island for each individual eyelash. Here we have the main gradient of the guide, and this is a gradient for each individual hair. Here we have a thickness map for the hairs, which is going to be darker in the thinner regions of the geometry. And here is a random value for each hair. For the ends fade, connect the alpha, and now we can fade in the roots of the hairs, like that, and also the tips. There we are. And yeah, that's it for the eyelashes. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. See you next time.